Good afternoon, lads, ladies, and enemies. My name is Aditi Namputiri, and I am the host for today's interview with the lovely ADITE BANERJEE. Ma'am, could we have a brief introduction about yourself from you for the viewers, please?
Hi Aditi, thanks for inviting me to the BANAFEST, and it's a great pleasure to be here with you and your viewers. Well, about myself, I have been a writer for many years, almost more than 30 years now. I started off my career as a journalist. I worked as a business journalist for a long time, and before I switched to fiction. Um, since about 2006, I have been writing screenplays and novels, and I have published about 6 books till now. Some of them, 3 of them were actually published by Harlequin HarperCollins India, and the rest I have self-published. So that's about me.
That is aspirational, seriously. So, to get us on the road, let me start off with this really straightforward and cliche question. When did you first realize that you wanted to be a writer, an author specifically?
A lot of people who get into writing, they say that they have always been writing since their childhood, and that they've been writing poems or short stories or whatever. But with me, it was really very odd because as a kid, I never wrote anything. I mean, I used to love reading, so I read a lot of books, and at home, my parents always encouraged me to read whatever I could lay my hands on. So I read anything and everything, right from Enid Blyton books to, Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys, all that kind of stuff. And then, and those days I never thought of writing anything. So it was very odd, actually, because with me, I really began to be interested in writing after college, and I wanted to do a course in journalism, and that was when my uh, what can I say, my love affair with writing began, and it continues to this day.
Incredible. So, so you said that you had grown up reading Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys, those in the thriller, the mystery section, and we can see that like I've seen that most of your works are in the romance section, primarily the romance. So, what marked that shift? Like, what made you choose romance instead of like thriller? Say.
Well, you see, what happened was sometime around 2013, there's this publisher, Harlequin, which brings out this brand of, I'm sure you've heard of Mills and Boon novels.
Oh,
Yeah, Mills and Boon are known for their romances the world over, and they were coming into India, and they had started this contest for aspiring authors, and they wanted a short story which if selected, it was a contest, so everyone was asked to submit entries, and I had sent in my entry for a romance, for a short romantic story, and it got selected. I was one of the 3 winners who got selected, and then based on that story, I was asked to flesh it out into a full-fledged novel. So that's how I got into the romance genre, so to speak. And after that book came out, I wrote another book for them, which was also another romance. It was called Trouble Has a New Name. It was more of a chicklet, so it had a lot of romantic. The romance angle was there, of course, but apart from that, it was also about the friendship between 2 young girls and what happens to them. So it was, so that's how it took off. My third book for them again was a romance, but in that I gave it a thriller angle. So it was a romantic thriller called No Safe Zone.
Oh,
So those, yeah. So I have been tweaking around with different genres within the romance category. So that's how it's worked for me.
so when it comes to when you came to writing, like when you were writing your first book, as a rookie author, what were some of the struggles that you had faced when you were publishing books and trying to market yourself, getting yourself known?
Well, I was lucky in the sense that I already had a publisher who wanted to publish my books, you know. So while most writers have to go around looking for a publisher, I was very, very lucky in having found a publisher even before I had written my book. So for in that sense, it was a little different. But as a rookie author, um, I had to deal with more about how to tell my story and finding a way to tell the story which did not bore people. So I needed to work out my plot and then have characters who were interesting and bring in a little bit of mystery angle to them. For instance, even in my first book, which was uh, when Harlequin published it, it was called The Indian Tycoon's Marriage Deal. Now, in even in that book, there had a bit of a revenge angle because it was about this girl who wants revenge on her enemy, and she decides to marry this boy who is her enemy's son. Now, so there was that angle over there, the mystery thriller kind of angle over there. So I had to make sure that it all blended together, and it was a little difficult because you don't know how much of romance to put and how much of other elements, whether I'm going overboard or not, or whether I'm underdoing the romance, because I had been technically signed up to write romance. So it was, dealing with these aspects, but you learn along the way. And also I had a very good editor who guided me through the whole process, and she would, give me feedback on what I had written. So I would write a few chapters, and she would get back to me and say that, look, this is not working or this is working. So it over a period of time, I begin to learn from my own mistakes and from the feedback that I got, that how to kind of build your story and tell an interesting story basically.
Right. So one of the challenges when you're writing, say, like, a romance thriller, like anything where you're putting multiple genres together. So I suppose you would find that like there would be a challenge in how much romance to put versus how much to make it a thriller, how much to focus on your main characters' relationships from different angles. So how did you figure out like how much is enough? How enough is enough? Like when it comes to adding in romance, how little is it? How do you figure it out?
Yeah, there is no specific formula as to so to speak. Um, but I guess as you write, you can kind of like, for instance, I was told that uh, Milton Boone is a brand, right? It's read by people all over the world, and they have a specific kind of formula, if you want to call it that. And so they tell you that the story has to be mostly about the hero, about your lead protagonist, which is the hero and the heroine. And okay, you can have secondary characters, but they shouldn't overwhelm the two main characters. So that was like a guideline, so then okay, um, your your primary characters are this girl and this boy who are going through this relationship or falling in love or having troubles in their relationship, there are fights, this, that, whatever is going on. And the other, they should be up and, up front and center of your story. And the other characters have to play supporting roles. They cannot be, so, so that becomes like a framework, a guideline, and then you get an idea of how much you should be doing, how much of love scenes should be there, or how much of conflict scenes should be there, how much of other, interactions with other characters. So you kind of figure it out as you go along. So it doesn't happen all together. It, slowly as you write and you revise it and you read it back, you get feedback from people. If you don't have an editor, you will ask your friend or, someone who reads in that genre. For instance, if you have a friend who likes reading romance and who has read several novels, so, he or she would have an idea that, yeah, mostly it works like this, so something is missing or something is not missing. So that person can give you feedback, and based on that, you kind of figure out how to tell your story.
So you mentioned that Mills and Boons has a typical formula. They give you a formula for you to, guidelines for you to follow when you're writing stories, right? So has it ever happened that this formula, like this restriction, caused you to maybe cut out portions of stories that you wanted to tell, but then because of the formula you could not tell? Has it ever happened?
Yeah, that happens, especially if you're writing for a publisher which has very set guidelines, and which has so then you need to work within their parameters. So you really can't go out of that. But say if you are a self-published author, then you have more freedom to do what you want, to do it, to tell your story your way. So there is a good and bad to both sides. So for instance, if you have a kind of a framework, you can still be creative and you can still tell your story differently, which doesn't resemble something that someone else may have written. It may still be very unique to your way of telling a story. So you can still be creative within that fixed kind of framework as well. And of course, if you have the freedom to tell your story your own way, well, there's nothing like it,
Indeed. So in the beginning, also, like you had mentioned that you've written screenplays as well, and one of your scripts even managed to make it to the prestigious Nicole Fellowships Academy. That is great. Wow. So I really have to ask. So what's it like, the writing a screenplay or a script versus writing a fully published novel? Like, what's the difference? Like, how have you experienced it differently?
Well, when I got into fiction, I basically wanted to write scripts or screenplays. I had no kind of intention of writing books, because I thought writing a book is very, very difficult, because you have to keep so many things in mind, and it has to be, and since one had been used to reading thick books, we said I can never write a 400-page book, So I was in that kind of mindset. But I started to learn screenwriting by doing online courses and stuff like that, and I really enjoyed it. And so when I started writing scripts, one of the first things that I learned was that screenwriting is a visual, screenplays are a visual medium, movies are a visual medium. So when you write for the movies, you have to visualize your scene and then write, so that you know exactly how the scene will turn out if it is on a screen. So which means that you really cannot, since you can't see what a person is thinking, you cannot put that in a script. So you have to write scenes where it can be enacted by the actors, and and it can come through, their emotions can be displayed on screen. But whereas in a book, you have the freedom to get into the character's head and to know what a character's point of view is, because he or she may be thinking a certain way, and so that is a luxury which you can do, which the writer has while writing a book. But you can't do that in a film, or when you're writing for film. You have to make sure that you can write only things that can be acted out by an actor. So that is the one most important factor and difference between writing novels and writing screenplays.
So if someone were to ask you like what is easier to write, like screenplays or novels, or what would you prefer more to write? So what would be your answer?
Actually, I don't know. Find it very difficult when I've been asked this question several times, and I really don't know what to say because I don't know. I enjoy both. When I am writing a script, I am in the zone over there, and I love fleshing out the script and love working out how the uh, characters will play and what they will say, and the dialogues that, for instance, are very important in a film script. So so that is a very interesting and exciting process in itself. And on the other hand, even writing a book, it has its own different level of excitement. You go into the characters, you do a lot of research into um, what the setting of the book will be, so that you can, when you're describing a place, the reader can visualize while reading the book that, okay, this place looks like this house looks like this heroine lives in a house like this. So it's very different. And writing wise, you can play around with words and evoke emotions in your books. So that has its own different feel and excitement to it.
So there's no clear answer in summary. It all depends on how you're feeling at that moment.
Yes. When I am doing one thing, I'm totally into it, and so I enjoy doing whatever I am doing.
Oh, definitely. Speaking about feeling things, like how do you feel like when you see your scripts play out like on the big screen? So like, while you're writing the scripts, like how involved are you when you see them acting out, like and stuff?
Yeah, frankly, one of my screenplays was made into a short movie. So it was, I mean, I was not there while the film was being shot, but when I saw when the director showed me some of the first cuts of the film, it was such it was a really good experience for me, because uh, to see what you have written on paper and to have it enacted by somebody and to hear that person deliver the dialogues that you have written is a whole different kind of feeling, and you are like, I was like, oh my god, I did this. So it was that kind of moment. And yeah, it is very interesting, and I hope it happens more often.
So when you're writing scripts, do you ever write with certain like actors in mind, or like you go in completely blind, or do you have like some talk with at least the director about who they have and go with their vision?
No, I don't really think of actors per se. A lot of people do that, they visualize a popular actor. But I find that distracts me, in a sense. I prefer to give my characters their unique, traits or unique mannerisms. So I really don't kind of think of it in that sense. I can't like say for instance someone would write with Deepika Padukone in mind. But I think, you know, when I'm writing, if I were to do that, it would restrict my imagination, because then I would only be thinking of the kind of expressions that I have seen of Deepika. She may be a very good actress and she may have a lot more in, you know, she may have a lot more potential. But for me, it is restrictive in the sense that in my imagination, I imagine my characters in a certain way. So my writing or the way my heroine speaks or any other character speaks is very unique to that image that I have in my mind. So, so frankly, it's like I may think of things like, okay, she is short or tall, or she is heavy, or she is lean, or you know, she is not very fit. Yeah, I mean, think of things like that, you know, physical traits. But beyond that, I don't really put faces to their names, so to speak.
Ah, that's interesting. So coming back to about your novels, your latest work would be Just the Way You Are, right? So could you tell us a bit
Yeah.
about it?
Actually, that is not my latest work. My latest work is a short story which I had written called Shelley. Shelley, A Promise is Forever. It is a very short story. It's not really a novel, but that is the one that I've released recently. And interestingly enough, this was actually, I wrote this story as first as a script. It
Ah,
was a yeah, it was a screenplay before it became a short story. So I had, you know, it's a very visual kind of story. It's a mystery. There's a mystery angle to it. It is about this girl called Shelley who was lost. You know, she was a very good sailor, and then there is this that accident that happens when she goes on a sailing a boat race, and she she never comes back, and her lover has never been able to come to terms with his grief. And so this story revolves around these two characters and the antagonist, who is this guy's the lover's own brother. And it is just a relationship drama between three people. And so it is a very short story. There are no other characters, and that's why I had written it first as a screenplay. And because also when this story came to my mind, it was more as a visual about this girl who's on a ship, on a cruise boat, and this is in the sea, and what is happening all around. There's a storm all around. So it was a very visual thing that um, the premise was a very visual one. And so I had first written it as a script, and then I decided to publish it as a short story. And so it was, you know, kind of a bit of, I was trying to do a bit of both, write
oh,
a script and a book of the same story.
yeah. So when you were converting that script to the written story, so what was the most difficult part of doing that? I can imagine, like from trying to describe something like visually, especially when you already have a script in it, there ought to be some struggle trying to find perhaps the correct words or placing, showcasing the right emotions.
Yeah. The challenge was in bringing alive that the visuals that were there in my head uh, through words. So basically, to explain the entire scenario, what to describe the setting in a manner that would be, um, you know, that would evoke those emotions, as well as bring it out to the reader that where this is happening and what is going on. So it was it is a very intense kind of story. So I struggled with it uh, to bring alive those emotions.
Oh. So it was a challenge for you essentially. So what would you feel, which of your works do you think was the most challenging for you to write?
um, what would be most challenging for me? I think I could never write a horror story.
Oh my.
I think that would be a challenge for me because I mean, like I, I I find it difficult to read a horror story, so I don't know how I would write one.
But if you were to if you were to try out a genre other than romance, like just something completely romance free, another one, which genre would you be like more open to writing in?
I would probably write crime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, because in fact, for the last couple of months, I have been thinking of doing maybe not full-fledged novels, but more like short stories, say about 15 to 20,000 word kind of stories, based on true crime, and one with a slightly different twist to them in the sense that they wouldn't be contemporary stories, but they would be set back in time, maybe in the 19th century or 18th century or something like that. So I have been thinking of stories like that. So yeah, it's quite
I would
exciting as I
I would definitely read that because I am a huge fan of crime myself, thrillers, murder mysteries. They are my jam, honestly. And I really wish I could ask you a lot more, but now we are running out of time. So to conclude, I will end it with this final question. Is there any advice that you would like to share with rookie writers?
yeah, I mean, all that I can tell a young writer who is just starting out as a writer and wants to be published in the near future, I would say that you should read a lot. Read and read and read some more, because that is what gives a foundation, gives a writer his or her foundation. So once you read a lot of books, whatever the genre may be, you have to figure out what you like and where your interests lie before you start writing. You might not um, know like whether you're going to be a writer of a romance or a crime story or a thriller or maybe non-fiction or maybe anything else. But to figure that out, you need to read and to see what kind of books you like reading, and then you start, developing a habit of writing. Maybe you start writing a journal, putting your thoughts together, So that is a very good practice. And if you write daily, even if you write 500 words every day in your journal, it will develop you over time. You will see how you can, build in your writing technique from that. And then as you go along, you will figure out which are the subjects that interest you most, so you can focus on that. And then, of course, there are a lot of courses available online. There are creativity courses, writing courses. So do those. Talk to people, talk to writers, find out from other writers what they are writing about, what they are thinking about. So it always helps to share um, your thoughts with others, and then that helps you develop your own interests as well.
Right. That's that's valid, very valid. I can contest. It definitely is. Thank you so much for that lovely advice. And thank you so much for joining me today and spending your precious time answering these questions. These will
Thank
definitely.
you, Aditi. It's been my pleasure entirely. And I hope I have talked some sense, and that some writers will, be able to put into use some of what I have said.
Oh, definitely. I definitely believe this will be of use one way to the others, to the viewers, myself included, of course. So, once again, thank you so much for attending this interview.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Have a great
Bye.
day.